Alright, folks, let me take you back to a time when something unsettling happened to me in Malaysia. But, before I dive into the story itself, I think it's important to give you a little background, to set the scene properly. So, Malaysia. This wasn't my first time there. My first stint was as a student from 2008 to 2011, and then I went back in 2017, and I've been here since. Back in my student days, I'd often talk to the locals, especially about how much they seem to love horror movies. Like, really love them. I mean, most of the films released here are horror. Naturally, I'd ask them why. Do you guys just love being scared? Or is it the thrill? And their answer, every single time, was that these stories felt real to them, especially for those living in villages or remote areas. They'd say things like, "These events aren't just made up. Stuff like this happens here." And honestly, I thought it was all just, folklore or exaggerated tales. I mean, come on, we're in the modern age, right? How could such things still happen? But I guess I'd find out for myself. So it's 2017. I had just moved into this new apartment complex, a 40-story building, Block A and Block B. I lived in Block B. The occupancy was really low, maybe 15 to 20%, which was great because, hey, cheap rent. For the first few months, everything was fine. Nothing unusual. But then things started shifting. It began one night after a community event. It went late, like past 1 a.m., and by the time I headed home, my car was nearly out of fuel, so I stopped by a petrol pump to fill up. It took a bit longer than expected, and I ended up reaching my building around 2:30 a.m. Now, let me paint a picture for you. My parking spot was on the first floor. To get to the apartments, you'd need an access card to enter the lift lobby. That night, as I parked and headed toward the lifts with my wife and young son, something odd happened. Just as I pressed the button to call the lift, we heard it. A woman crying. Loud, gut-wrenching sobs echoing through the empty lobby. It wasn't just crying. It was the kind of sound that pulls at your gut, like someone was in deep, unbearable pain. We froze. For a moment, we just listened, trying to figure out where it was coming from. The sound seemed to move, almost like it was circling us. My wife, bless her heart, immediately switched into protector mode. She insisted we find this person. "Someone's in distress," she said. "We have to help." So I didn't want to scare my son, so I just nodded and said, "All right, let's check it out." We took the lift back down to the ground floor, but the crying persisted. Now this building had 6 lifts, and the sound seemed loudest near one of them. I opened it up, but there was no one inside. The sound, though, it was louder. It seemed to be coming from the lift shaft. And let me tell you, that realization sent a shiver down my spine. Because who or what could be crying from inside there? I decided to involve the security team. They checked the CCTV footage, every floor, every lobby, every staircase, and guess what? No one, not a single soul had been recorded. But the sound, it didn't stop. It stayed with us for a good 15 minutes before vanishing. Just like that. Gone. The guards couldn't explain it. Neither could I. Over the next few weeks, things got stranger. We'd hear footsteps in our apartment, running from one room to another. Heavy thuds, like something big had fallen, only to find nothing out of place. And then there was the whispering. Oh, the whispering. It came from the guest bathroom. Soft, indistinct voices, just loud enough to send chills down your spine. Every time we'd try to get closer, the whispers would stop. The turning point. My son. One night, He came running out of his room, terrified. He swore he'd seen someone standing by the window, a figure with long hair. But, of course, there was no one there. And then there was the time I was in the kitchen late at night, rummaging through the fridge. Out of nowhere, a voice, a raspy, angry voice, spoke from right behind me. "What do you want?" I turned around so fast, my heart nearly stopped. But there was nothing, no one, just silence. That was it. We couldn't take it anymore. My wife and I decided to take action. Every night we'd pray in the house, loud, non-stop. For a week we kept it up. And you know what? It worked. The noises stopped, the whispers faded, and that oppressive, eerie feeling lifted. It's been 3 years since then. We still live in the same apartment, and everything's been peaceful. But, every now and then, late at night, when it's quiet and still, I can't help but wonder, was it really over? Or was it just waiting?